Hey guys, it's our fifth and final day here in Killarney Provincial Park on our annual guys camping trip, and we have had an absolutely awesome time. The weather has been stunning. We've only had one day of a little bit of misty rain, but other than that, we've had a great time. It's been one of our longest trips. We've really pushed ourselves, and as we get packed up here, I thought I'd go over our entire route, where we've been, and where we still have yet to go today. We began our trip from access point number 4 on Bell Lake. We rented our canoes from Killarney Outfitters, and they have a nice little beach launch area. There's also Killarney Canoes right next door, and they actually have a nice big dock that you're able to launch your canoe from if you rent from them. So our first day would have us travel from Bell Lake all the way to Harry Lake. We did a total of 3 portages today. The first was across an easy 40-meter marine railway where they used to carry their motorboats from 3 Mile or Bell Lake into Balsam Lake. The second was a 375-meter into Pike Lake, and then from there was a 640-meter into Harry Lake, where we stayed for our first night. Our second day, we'd planned to travel all the way to Bear Lake across 5 portages, totaling almost 3.5 kilometers just in portages alone, for a total distance of 19 kilometers, which should take us approximately 6 hours to accomplish, which didn't factor in a lunch break. But luckily, all the portages were relatively flat and straightforward. The first 2 and the final one were a little bit muddy, but all considering, they were not very technical and easy to accomplish. Now on our third day, we'd planned to travel all the way from Bear Lake to David Lake across 6 portages, roughly 4.5 kilometers just in portages alone. The first portage was 285, the second one is 585 meters, and now somewhere in here between Goose Lake and Fish Lake, we were able to skip over parts of some portages due to the higher water levels. There's also a couple of beaver dams in there that you have to hop over.
Water can go through high grass.
But all in all, not too bad. And then we had a 100-meter and a 285-meter portage, and then a 440-meter between Fish Lake and Great Mountain Lake.
Just walking a portage from Great Mountain Lake to David Lake.
And then the final portage at 2,775 meters was probably the toughest of our entire trip, mostly due to its sheer length.
3/4 of the way along. Very hilly, rocky, sweaty.
It landed us into David Lake, where we spent our 3rd and 4th nights for a total distance again of 16 kilometers today. It took us approximately 5.5 hours to accomplish. That's just travel time, so that's just paddling and portaging. That 5.5 hours doesn't include any rest stops or lunches or anything like that. Once again, for a 3rd day in a row, we were truly blessed with some phenomenal weather. We had clear, sunny blue skies with almost no wind, which gave us great paddling times, enough time once we reached our campsites to have some good leisure time to relax and kick back. With any other weather though, it might have been a totally different experience for us. On the 4th day, we decided not to move campsites, that we actually wanted to take a day off from paddling for the most part, and we wanted to hike up to Silver Peak. So we paddled from our campsite on David Lake to the start of the portage that goes into Boundary Lake. The La Cloche Silhouette backpacking trail intersects this portage, so we met up with that trail and hiked along the trail a little bit until you meet the side trail that would take you up to Silver Peak. So from the start of the portage on David Lake all the way to Silver Peak and back again was approximately 11 kilometers, and at our hiking pace it should have taken us about 4.5 hours without stopping to take in any sights or scenery or to look around at the top of the mountain. So that hike is totally worth it. I've done it a number of times. Most of us have done it a couple times now. It's an absolutely phenomenal hike with a great view at the top most of the time. However, on this trip, our view was very obscured by heavy fog. We could barely see 10 feet in front of us for the most part. It did clear a little bit, but on a clear day from the top of Silver Peak, you can see almost 90 kilometers to Sudbury. Like, it is absolutely stunning view. So totally worth the 11-kilometer hike from David Lake all the way up to the top. And that brings us to day 5, our final day here in Killarney Provincial Park. We'll be paddling from our campsite on David Lake all the way to where we began our journey on Bell Lake, access point number 4. We have mostly sunny skies above us with a few clouds. It's looking like it's going to be a gorgeous way to end off our trip. By the time we reach our cars here today, we'll have traveled approximately 73 kilometers over the last 5 days. That includes our round trip hike up to Silver Peak. This has been one of our most ambitious trips. We've had an absolute blast, the weather being on our side almost the whole time. But keep that in mind if you're planning a longer trip. The weather can really slow you down. We just have 2 short portages ahead of us here today. The first one being a 210 meter and then a 700 meter. Both of these are pretty easy in my opinion. They're very well used portages, so they're nice and flat and wide. We've made great time getting across them, especially due to the fact that our packs are significantly lighter than when we started. We've eaten pretty much all of our food and used up a lot of our fuel, so we've probably shed close to 60 to 65 pounds. So these portages are a lot easier than when we first started. And after our final portage of our camping trip, we just had a short little paddle back to our access point where our vehicles are parked, and we decided to finish strong, paddle hard. But in our excitement, you'll notice that we did forget to wear our life jackets or PDFs. That is not something I would recommend. They are very important pieces of equipment, and accidents can happen at any time, no matter how short your paddle is. So wear your life jacket when you're on the water, please. But we were lucky here. We made it to the finish line safe and dry. We parked the canoe and ended with some congratulatory high fives after completing another great trip. If you have any comments or questions about our trip, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. We appreciate you sticking around and watching our video. Until next time, thanks guys.